to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. I am Meg Biddle, and welcome to the show. So glad to have you all here. If you've not been to the show before, one, where have you been? And two, what's this about? It's about ministry. Therefore the name, right? But it's really talking to people who serve in ministries that are outside of the traditional church, beyond the pulpit, that kind of thing, and hearing and sharing their stories. So today, I know I do need confetti, people. I do. I need some confetti. We need to figure this out. I need to put that on my goals for 2024. Yes, confetti. I have. There you go. Reverend Dr. Brian Henderson, Executive Director of, I do the whole thing, the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptist, also just known as Brian. But
that's right.
Welcome to the show.
Hey. Thank you, Meg.
So,
good to be here. Good to see you.
So glad to have you. Like, yay! And for those who've seen before, we've had other AWAB folks already on the show. If you didn't catch their episodes, actually, I will put their links to their episodes in this episode. So then you have no excuse. You can watch them all.
More confetti.
So, no, like, what? Yeah, I need to call people at the StreamYard and be like, how do I do that? There's got to be a way. So, Brian, for people who don't know you, why don't you tell everybody like who you are, what you do, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Meg. Really good to be with you today and good to be having this conversation. I've been anticipating this and looking forward to it. So my name is Brian Henderson. I appreciate you using titles before my name, but I always like to say if my mother finds out that my first name is anything other than what she named me, she might be upset. So Brian works. So I am glad. And speaking of my mom, I actually grew up in New Jersey, not too far from Valley Forge, and then went on to school in St. David's. I went to Eastern College. I actually started at the Center for Urban Theological Studies in Philadelphia and then matriculated to Eastern College in the January term of 1995. Graduated from there, went on to the seminary, graduated from the seminary, and then began serving an American Baptist church right in Valley Forge, right up the hill from what used to be the American Baptist Mission Center. So yeah, and I just this week what's that? The Holy Donut. Yeah, some people.
Holy Donut. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people over the years would call it more in a more health conscious way. They'd call it the Holy Bagel, but I was always intentional. I was always intentional about calling it what it was, the American Baptist Mission Center. So, or the Mission Center for American Baptist Churches USA. But
okay,
I just this week. What's that?
Oh, sorry. No, you're saying just this week. What?
Oh, I was going to say just this week I had to fill out some paperwork for MMBB, and in filling that out was reminded that I have now been in ministry with American Baptist for 25 years, which is crazy to think about. I know.
So your first church was Upper Marion was your first church.
That's correct.
Is that right?
I went. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I served Upper Marion Baptist Church. I served there first as a college and seminary intern for 4 years, and then was pastored there for 9. So I was in King of Prussia for a total of 13 years, and loved every minute of it. The congregation there was a wonderful congregation, and I'm glad to still be in connection with some of the folk from Upper Marion. So yeah, in fact, one of your colleagues lives in the parsonage that I once upon lived in with my family. So yeah, but from Upper Marion, I then went on out to Denver, Colorado, and served Calvary Baptist Church. I followed Reverend Mary Holst, who is past president of American Baptist Churches USA. And then I was there for 4 years, and then moved to First Baptist Church, which is downtown, right across the street from the state capitol, and served there for 12 years. I just concluded my ministry there earlier this year when I made the transition to begin full time as AWAB's executive director. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. Started out being born in New Jersey, eventually grew up, graduated high school, did all of my college and seminary work within our American Baptist institutions. And over the years, I have a family. I have 3 children who I love and with whom I enjoy spending time. My oldest is already in college, which seems hard to believe. My youngest is a eighth grader, and then I have my daughter in between is a junior in high school. So
Mm.
yeah,
So it is AWAB then headquartered in Denver, or do you guys not really have a headquarters,
yeah,
so
that's
to
a good
speak?
question. So technically speaking, AWAB's office mailing address is in Louisville, Kentucky, and Crescent Hill Baptist Church, an American Baptist congregation, they provide us with office space. Although I like to say our office space at Crescent Hill, for which we are very, very grateful, our office space is an oversized closet. And we share that closet with an HVAC system. And so I like to tell people that AWAB has to come out of the closet over and over again. So, which is kind of a good way of telling a little bit about our story and why we exist. So, yeah,
I love that. I've never heard that from you,
yeah,
but I love it.
yeah. But to further explain our office situation, AWAB staff, however, we are decentralized. And so each of us as staff, and there are 4 of us on staff right now, we work in different parts of the country. I am working from home in Denver when I'm not traveling. And then we have a development director who works out of her home in North Carolina. Our administrative coordinator lives and works with us in Louisville, Kentucky. And then our communications coordinator is currently living in Austin, Texas. So we are literally across the country.
Wow. I didn't realize everybody was so spread out, but that's awesome. I mean,
It is.
that
Yeah.
you're in all corners. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Um, so I guess for people who might not know what AWAB is, do you want to talk a little bit about what AWAB is, what you do, what they do?
Sure. Sure. The Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists has been in existence for just over 30 years. Last year, we celebrated AWAB's 30th anniversary. Uh, AWAB began in 1993. The welcoming and affirming movement, however, within American Baptist life began in 1973 with a group of clergy that got together to talk about what it was like for them as LGBTQ plus identifying individuals to be serving in ministry and within Baptist life. And from that group, grew an organization known as American Baptist Concern. And that organization really was in existence, being a support to individuals within ABC life who either identified as LGBTQ plus or were allies. That organization really supported individuals up until the early 90s. And then there was a little bit of overlap between American Baptist Concerned and AWAB, but then eventually, American Baptist Concerned essentially completed or concluded the ministry that it had done over the years as AWAB essentially took the mantle and continued to provide support to congregations across our denomination. And so AWAB historically was started because there were ABC congregations that either stood the threat of being disfellowshipped from their region or were being disfellowshipped from their region. And so AWAB then was formed to be a support network for those congregations. And over the course of time, that association, that network of welcoming and affirming congregations has grown. So today, AWAB currently has 161 member congregations and ministries, literally all over the United States, including Alaska. We have a congregation as well in Canada. We're beginning to create some networks with Baptists in Puerto Rico. So it's been a rich ministry that folk who have helped to carry AWAB all these years. It's been a rich ministry that has been really meaningful for congregations as well as individuals. And in the last 5 years, AWAB has begun to more proactively reach out beyond American Baptist life. And so we are now networking within Cooperative Baptist Fellowship Life, which has been really exciting. And there's been real energy around coming alongside of congregations to help them kind of make that step from should we be welcoming and affirming? Should we not be welcoming and affirming? And so AWAB is there to help congregations take that next step. And we are also beginning now to develop partnerships with Baptists outside of the U.S. and even outside of this part of the country. So, which we are excited about as well.
Oh, wow. So the 161, that's
Mhm.
not just American Baptist then, that's all
That's
Baptists?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So mostly at this point in time, largely American Baptist congregations. However, we have quite an influx of Cooperative Baptist Fellowship congregations that are joining. In fact, in the last year, AWAB has been in conversation with an organization that was a part of the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship life called Affirming Network. And the Affirming Network was an organization that took root to be similar to what AWAB has been to American Baptist congregations. The Affirming Network was going to be an organization to support CBF churches. And for different reasons, the work that the Affirming Network began is a work that it folk that were involved found themselves just having some challenges trying to figure out how do we grow this and develop this. And so instead of trying to figure out still how to make it work, folk from AWAB and folk from the Affirming Network came together and said, let's see what we could do together. So essentially, AWAB
Mm.
is going to continue now to provide welcoming and affirming support and resources to CBF in a real intentional way, which we're excited about.
So, like, what is it? Is it, I know you said supporting churches, but is it like when there has been an incident in the community, do you get calls from the church and go, how do I, how do, how do I get up there and preach about God's goodness in the midst
Mm,
of hate? I mean,
yeah.
is it what what is it that the kind of support?
Yeah, it's a good question. And honestly, the more that we grow and the more that we are living out of a current strategic plan that intentionally sees us growing and developing our board, our staff, our membership, and our programming, it seems like the more attention that we give to this work, the more phone calls and emails we get almost on a weekly basis, to be honest. Some of those phone calls come from pastors to say, I think we have consensus to take that step and become welcoming and affirming, but we're not sure exactly what to do. And so AWAB will come alongside congregations like that to help them in that process. Um, we also, though, are realizing that historically AWAB was formed to support congregations that were getting disfellowshipped. That was 30 years ago, right? The reality of being disfellowshipped can still be a reality today in some regions. However, the conversations we're having today are different than they were 30 years ago. And so AWAB now is figuring out how do we support congregations who've been welcoming and affirming for many years, even not just those that are just at that initial step. So we have provided webinars and continuing ed opportunities online. We've done a series twice now on a book called Sinless Sex, which really kind of gets people's interest, right? And
I read
it's
that one.
the Yes, the book is written by an American Baptist author, Bill Staton. So we have, in coordination with Bill Staton, we've used his book and his expertise to provide an opportunity for people to talk about human sexuality from from multiple points of view and realities. Just just last week, AWAB hosted a virtual vigil for Next Benedict. Um, we received notes from congregations across the country saying, "What do we do? How do we respond to this?" And so, in response to the tragic situation that happened to this 16-year-old non-binary student in Oklahoma on February 7th, we held in their honor space to remember them and to create a place where we could have some solidarity together. So another example, though, of what is AWAB doing and what can we do, we had a congregation about a year and a half ago reach out from the South to say, we're wrestling with pronouns. What do we do with pronouns? Why are people talking about pronouns the way they're talking about them today? Can you help us? And so we were able to network with this congregation, and one of our board members, who happens to be an expert herself, we were able to offer a webinar with this congregation on how to use pronouns and how to think about them and how to be sensitive with their use. So AWAB is seeking as much as it can to meet the felt needs of its congregations. Um, we are also on an annual basis now offering an annual lectureship. We have this year, our lecture will happen in September, and it'll be our third annual lecture now. And so, what we are doing with our annual lectureship is we are attempting to bring the academy and the church together so that we are allowing the academic side of human sexuality issues and realities to intersect with the practical ways in which we live out our humanity day to day in our local congregations. So we are excited about our annual lectureship, and I think soon we'll be able to announce this year's lecturer. So be on the lookout. Keep visiting awab.org.
Yeah, yeah. I put it up earlier, but I want to make sure I put it up again. I mean,
Thank you.
what you guys are doing is, yeah, I mean, you know how I feel, but like
Sure.
it's so important, and with um folks like the tragedy of Next Benedict. I mean, how heartbreaking that all is, and I remember reading one of the articles of just like we didn't know how important pronouns are,
Mhm,
like how
mhm,
how that's a yeah, it takes retraining your brain a little bit,
mhm,
but how something that is essentially so simple is a way of
mhm,
supporting
mhm,
someone that all people can do
mhm.
if they're willing to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
uh, so so how did you how did you get to AWAB? Because what you've been there for 9, 10 years, something like longer than me.
I have
I mean,
technically
like
I have been with AWAB in an official capacity for about 6 years now.
okay, okay. So how did you get
Yeah,
involved? Just through your churches?
yeah. Good question. So I have been involved with the board and now staff for 6 years. But like many over the years, I have watched AWAB and have appreciated AWAB from a distance, often seeing AWAB at biennial events. Um, and and then at one point in time, you weren't too inaccurate with your statement. About 10 years ago, I actually did some work with AWAB as well. And through that, found myself really catching a passion for its mission and vision. And so I would say I have watched AWAB from over the years, and there was a point in time in my own life when I was still very closeted myself as a human being. And so I would attend some AWAB worship services that were usually at an off-site location from a biennial gathering. And I was so closeted, I would sneak in, hoping that I wouldn't be seen, and then I'd try and sneak out. So it is a gift for me all these years later to know one to be out as I am, but to know that we have a welcoming and affirming family within our Baptist communities that welcomes us and supports us and creates a sacred and safe space for people to be, to think, to worship, to explore, to wonder, to imagine. So, yeah.
What keeps you doing this work? Like,
Oh my
is it
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is that the why question?
I think I yeah, let's go with that. I mean, yeah, what's your like obviously people have their opinions on the subject and you know,
Yeah,
they have their rights to have their opinions. It's a right to disagree, but could we do it respectfully, please?
right.
But like this is hard work what you're doing, like putting
Mm,
yourself out there. And
mm,
again, I just I appreciate you and that so much. But
mm,
like, yeah,
mm,
what is your why do you why do you keep doing this? And like
mm.
you're now this is it. Like you're now the executive
Yeah.
director. So
Thanks. No pressure. I
I
have to
want to
admit,
know
I
all the
have,
things. You know?
yeah.
Sorry.
I I freely tell people, I freely tell people there are days when I love what I do and I wonder, why do I get to do what I do? Because I'm passionate about it. Why do I get paid to do what I do? However, there are days too, like days this week, when I scratch my head and I wonder, what am I doing? How do we do this? So it's an interesting place to be. But and I think to answer your question, the why, I think there are lots of reasons why I wake up every morning and am passionate and excited and energized to do the work that AWEB does. I just have to, I read emails and I have conversations with people around the country who tell me um, why AWAB has been meaningful to them, and that inspires me. I was at a conference just a couple of weeks ago at the Proctor conference, and there was a couple that came up to me from the Washington, D.C. area, and they said, Brian, um, years ago, we were a clergy couple who led our congregation in in making space for the first same-sex union ceremony in our area and we were facing a lot of a lot of support, but also a lot of tension from folk as well. And AWAB came alongside us to just support us. And you have no idea how much of a difference that made. I was like, oh my goodness, that was exciting to hear. But when I'm asked the why question, while I can give many responses to that question, I like to tell the story of a friend of mine, and I will call my friend Sam. Sam's not this person's real name, but to protect this person's story and family, I will call this person Sam. Sam was a fellow seminarian with me when I was in school, and Sam arrived a little bit older than most of us, living in the seminary dorm. And there were a couple of things about Sam that kind of threw us off a little bit. Initially, we discovered we were our building was a non-smoking building, and we quickly discovered that Sam smoked in his room. He'd open the window and he'd smoke out the window, but the scent would easily float through the hallway. So we thought, oh my goodness, Sam's coming to seminary and he's smoking. What's going on? Then Sam had a girlfriend who would come and stay with him, which that's for some young seminarians that seemed a little bit scandalous, right? Well, we all
Yeah,
graduated and went off
absolutely.
our respective ways, and were called into ministries in different parts of the country. About about 10 years ago, which was about 2 years after I myself had come out as a man who's gay, I got a letter in the mail, snail mail, a real letter with a stamp on it, um, in my mailbox. And I opened it up, and the envelope was pretty thick. I opened it up and sat down to read what was a letter from Sam. Sam's cursive writing was absolutely beautiful. And so Sam wrote, one, to thank me for sharing my story as publicly as I had and my own coming out journey. And Sam then went on to tell me of his own struggle with his own human sexuality. In fact, Sam was gay, but never felt safe to say that and feared because of his age and the part of the country that he lived and served. He was afraid that if he came out, he could lose his job. He could no longer be a pastor. And that's what he was passionate about. And so that letter that he wrote me began a conversation between the two of us. One, we discovered that the reason why he smoked in seminary is because he was dealing with a stress in life that he didn't know how to cope with. And two, his girlfriend that came to stay with him, they weren't doing anything scandalous together. They were there to support each other because Sam needed support as he went through his own journey. Sam and I started talking, and I was able to say, there are there are churches and there are some regions, Sam, where you could serve, where you could be fully and freely who you are. And it seems crazy to think, but Sam didn't think that there were such places, but there were. And so I connected Sam with an executive minister that I knew who helped Sam begin to connect with some congregations that were open to calling someone such as Sam, someone who could be openly and freely gay as he was. And so Sam began to feel a sense of energy that he hadn't felt before in ministry. And probably about a year or more after we started communicating, Sam was serving a church in a rural community in the middle of the country. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and he was driving home and was in an accident and was killed, which was hard. And so, one reason why I'm committed to doing what I can and to help AWAB be an organization that could come alongside of congregations and individuals to help normalize what honestly is really normal. I want to make sure that there aren't more folk like my friend Sam who can't be who they really are. And I want to do what I can do and work with the people that I get to work with our staff, with our board, with our membership. I want us to do a work that can make it possible for the Sams of our world to be who they are and not have to live in fear for
Mm,
possibly losing their job if they come out to be who and how they've been created to be. So that's one of my whys, Meg. Mm,
I mean, wow,
yeah.
wow. Um,
Mm,
thank you for sharing that.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's wow. Um, thank you for again doing what you do for all the saints of the world.
Mm,
Um, I guess we gotta go from the sad, the why, to the joy then.
Hmm.
So what's that thing, in all you what's that thing that brings you joy?
Yeah. Good question. I actually just came back from a conference last week, and the theme of the conference was what brings you joy. And so throughout the week, conference participants were each sharing, this is what brings me joy. And there were some recurring themes, right? Family brings me joy. Getting to do what I love, whether it is work related, ministry related, or hobby related, brings me joy. And I have to say, absolutely, for me, family brings me joy. My parents, my siblings, nephews and nieces bring me joy. My children bring me great joy. I love being with them, traveling with them, and doing things together. What else brings me joy, though? So last week, I spoke near the end of this conference, and I spoke after probably 20 or so folk before me all shared what brings them joy. And so trying not to copy what many of them said, which I could agree with. I said what brings me joy is being able to honor others who have done good work, and I am excited and get joy out of being able to honor folk such as yourself who make possible what otherwise wouldn't be happening, to connect people, to network with people, to help us as Baptists particularly to see that there is always more we can do together than any of us can do on our own. I get great joy in working with the dynamic staff that AWAB has formed, from our administrative coordinator to our director of development to our communications coordinator. It is exciting and energizing for me because there are many things I know that I can't do. And so to be able to work with a team of people is really helpful for someone like myself. But to honor what others do, I think helps us lift up the the energy and the sense of affirmation that I think is needed for us as humans to keep doing what we can do, so that not to sound overly dramatic or overly too pie in the sky, but the more we can honor others, I think the more joy we can create, and the more pos- potential and possibility we can encourage, especially when it comes to matters of human sexuality. I think too often we get bogged down in disagreement, we get bogged down in conflict, we get bogged down in trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong. But if we can, in some ways, as humankind has had to do since time began, if we can allow ourselves to be who we are, recognizing that there's always going to be something that we're going to see differently anyway, whether it's human sexuality or anything, let's let's focus on honoring each other, and in honoring each other, do together what we can, and then live life for God, for Christ, for the church, for each other, for all people. And if we can do that, I think we stand the chance of creating some joy. And all of that makes me feel joy, and that keeps me going.
That's a great answer. I mean, not that any of these answers have been bad, but, like, it's just lovely. It really is to have all of that, like, putting the package all together. Like, it's just like, this is what I do. I mean, you get to be who you are in your job every
Mm,
single day and follow your call this way. And what better thing is there than to be able to be your authentic self
mm,
and um and be such a blessing to others. So
mm.
thank you so much.
Hey,
Um
thank you.
my my pleasure. I just get to come and like listen to these stories and lean in and learn.
Right?
So I'm the I'm the lucky one here.
Wow.
Um, really, I I will put up the website,
Please.
again, I've flashed it up there a couple times, but
Yep.
I'll put it, link to it in the show notes. We'll put,
There's
uh
a lot of information at the AWAB website. You can see our dynamic staff. You can see who our dynamic board is.
yeah,
You can read our current newsletter. You can look at our newsletter archive. There's a resource library. We have videos of past lectures and events. So please check it out. And you can also
all the
find out
great
you can
all
find
the
out
great book recommendations, yes, too.
that's right. Yep, yep, absolutely. And you can find out how you can support us as as AWAB, honors our history. We're in the process of publishing a book, which we're very excited about, and that should be available this summer. You can also, our development director would say, Brian, you missed an opportunity. If you go to awab.org, you can sign up and become a Rainbow Circle member, which is our monthly giving program that helps us, again, do together what none of us can do on our own. For as little as $10 a month, you can help us um, reach out and support congregations as they go through their welcoming and affirming process, as they find themselves, some of them, isolated in their communities, being maybe the only welcoming and affirming faith space there is. You can help us honor the lives of individuals, even the life of someone such as Max Benedict. So please consider visiting aweb.org and check out the Rainbow Circle opportunity. And with that comes all kinds of little gifts and notes and pieces of information and opportunities to participate in events, which is exciting too.
So hopefully, listeners, viewers, that this is just the beginning of your relationship with AWAB. Just a
Right.
little introduction, and I'll also put up Donnie Anderson and Cliff's
Please.
um, episodes. I'll link them to this as well, so that you can listen, you can watch, and I've just learned so much from these wonderful people who are willing to just sit there and smile at you while you
Mm,
ask your question that you have
mm,
no idea, and are so gracious and lovely about all of it. Um, so I am grateful for the work that all of you do, all of you.
mm. Well,
Um,
thank you. Thank you, Meg. We are grateful. AWAB is grateful for you. We're grateful for American Baptist Home Mission Societies. We're grateful for the support that we share collectively as a Baptist family, and we are glad to be able to connect with our larger Baptist family, whether it's at a conference like the Proctor Conference, or whether it's Space for Grace, or the Biennial, or General Assembly with the Cooperative Baptists. So it's exciting to be in different and various places, and we will continue to do what we can to show up. So yeah.
and if you're gonna be in Space for Grace, come and say hi to Brian. Well,
Boom,
say
boom,
hi to
boom,
me
boom,
too.
boom,
I'll be
boom,
around,
boom.
but
Yes,
definitely
absolutely. And
come see me.
I will wear my Ministry Mondays t-shirt.
So again, thank you so much for being
Thank
a
you.
part of this, and we thank our listeners, our viewers for being a part of this crazy journey, and what joy that it has brought, and the stories that we've had the opportunity to tell, and those that we
Mm,
still have to tell. So
mm.
thank everybody for watching.